What's up? This is Hollywood Astrology, August 25th and 26th, 2014. I am your host, David Palmer, the Leo King, and today we got a lot of stories to talk about today. First off, the Suge night shooting here in Hollywood. I really want to talk about that, and how is that connected with the California earthquake? There's a connection. We're going to talk about that. The world stage is actually getting a little crazy right now. We're going to talk about the government stuff that's shifting and this war going on with ISIS. And there's actually some good news. We had an American hostage that was rescued, and I predicted that if you watched my last show. And I'm going to talk about a crazy fight on an airplane. This is definitely an episode you are not going to want to miss. Make sure you check it out. Hollywood Astrology. I'll see you inside. Welcome to Hollywood Astrology. We have some intense stories to talk about today. Let me tell you, the astrology is intense. And how is this California earthquake, and actually there was more earthquakes. There was an earthquake in Chile, an earthquake in Peru, all in the 6-point sector, all within 48 hours of themselves in this big transit we just had, all connected to shootings that are happening, like the big one we had this weekend with Suge Knight. On Saturday night into Sunday morning, we had the moon come in, conjunct Venus, square Mars and Saturn, all this energy in this fixed signs, really intense, and this is all connected. First off, it triggered a big earthquake, and then right after that, a shooting. And this shooting is definitely connected with ego. The reason why I say that is because Mars and Saturn are playing a very important role in Scorpio as they are conjuncting, and this is going to expose and highlight the harsh aspects of people's egos and how they can go way wrong. It's actually connected because young Jeezy just actually today on August 26th and 25th got rolled for having a bunch of guns. So the truth is that this is going to play out very intensely right now. And if you see on the world stage with ISIS right now, with other aspects of governments going crazy, the energy is intense. And this weekend, the moon is going to come into Scorpio and highlight all of this same energy. So I'm just going to be honest with everybody. This is going to kind of be still around this week, and this is the big test. Can people check their egos? Can people move into the positivity even when it's harsh? Can the earth handle this intensity? I mean, we just popped off a bunch of earthquakes, and these ones actually were felt very intensely with people. So this is kind of an interesting time. This also is playing out with, I just looked at this story today, this airline had a bunch of passengers on it, and a huge fight broke out on the airline. We very rarely see this. This is the times right now. It's intense, it's harsh, and you've got to be protecting yourself, and not in the way of aggression, but staying in a higher vibration, learning to make sure you check your actions. And that's, I think, very important right now, is to check your actions. If we look on the world stage as well, in Ukraine, they just dismantled their parliament. These are the times we're in. Governments are going into truth. Everybody's checking their truth. And even America, before it can come into Syria, you know, it's got to know where the boundaries are. It's got to know where the rules are. That's this time. And the reason why I want to talk about ego and how it's connected with the shootings with all these rappers, and I'm just going to be honest saying it here, like, being a cool rapper is cool and all, I guess, but doing it without some sort of substance or some sort of positive vibration isn't going to work anymore. It's really not going to work. This is a time for people to, if you want to push an ego or push a persona or push something great, have a higher vibration behind it. This is a time for a higher vibration, a calling, because that's what people are flocking to. They're not flocking to, nobody wants to go see you, especially if you're connected with guns and looking so badass that you're going to kill people. This is where the harsh truth is coming in, that you need positivity with harsh truth, and harsh truth needs positivity. Like it's a very, or you need, I'll be honest, positivity needs to have that harsh truth to make it positive, to make sure it's the right thing. But these are gnarly times, and I think it's important to see that this week is going to trigger the finale of this energy that we've been in for the couple weeks. We just had some good news come out that one of the American hostages just got freed. And I'll be honest, I called that in last week's show. So there is good news on the horizon. And I think with all the events that are being triggered with rappers and the events of earthquakes, this is a week to really highlight it all and to make sure that you're protecting yourself, that you're watching your actions, and especially your anger, because this is very intense. And I have to come with a kind of a serious message this week, especially on this episode, because these are serious times. They're not just, you know, easy go, just fluff energy. The fluff is gone right now. And in relationships this week, it's going to be very much highlighted. It's so interesting, on the cover of US Weekly, it's Beyonce talking about divorce. I don't want to say I called it, but if you watched me on the last 2 TV shows I was on, I did say there was going to be some challenges. I actually don't think they're going to divorce right away. I definitely think that there's going to be some stuff to come out and some work between both of them. We'll see how this goes. But in your own relationships right now, realize that if it's coming to the end of, you know, anger or frustration or energy that just hasn't been working, this is one of those weeks that'll highlight that intensely and really put that to the test. Really excited today because I have an awesome guest, Timm, a great friend of mine, and he's going to share some wisdom, and we're going to talk about all these subjects, see what he has to say as well. Well, today I'm sitting with Timm, who's an awesome friend of mine. How are you doing today, Adam?
Great, thanks, David.
So Adam's been a longtime friend, not only in my spiritual life, but just outside. We DJ together, we hang out, and he owns a company called Zen Life. What's that all about?
Well, Zen Life, we're dedicated to helping people live a life outside of chronic stress. I find that a lot of people live just through habitual patterns and tense and anxious because they feel stressed every single day. And so my company is devoted to corporate trainings and working with people one-on-one and helping them get out of the stress response so that they can live their life of purpose.
Well, you've helped me out with stress because, believe it or not, even though I'm the Leo King and I'm all fun, there's a lot of tension in my life. But the reason why I brought you on today, because I think it's perfect. The timing is so intense right now with the astrology and war stuff and people cutting off people's heads, and what better way to bring on you with stress? So before we do our talk, and we're going to talk about these stories, just what's something that you think is a great tool to help people go through stress in everyday life?
Well, I would say that the #1 tool that we all should be using, if you're human, you should be setting aside at least 5 to 10 minutes every single day to simply sit and breathe. And it's that simple, just connecting with the breath, connecting with the feeling of your body, resting in the chair, your feet on the ground, the support of the chair beneath you. This, in its profound simplicity, actually allows a lot more space, and that space is then articulated in the way that we engage our day-to-day life.
Wonderful. Well, thank you for that, and I'm looking forward to walking on the street with you.
Awesome.
So, Adam, let's get into these stories right now.
Let's do it.
These stories are a little intense. The first one is these nightclub shootings, because even though to most people they think that's just pointless and stupid to talk about, but I think it's actually very serious because it is ego on the rampant, and it is actually pretty intense to have a gun go off in a public, contained space where people are hanging out and having fun. Like, what do you feel about it? Like, how do you feel?
I say that there's definitely a ton of aggression. And you were talking earlier about ego.
Yeah.
So people have something to prove.
I like that.
And when you're talking about the energies of the day, it's even more about that. But I think I do work on the individual level. So each person has an individual responsibility to chill out.
I know.
Right?
It's true.
We don't need to take that out into the world because it's then manifests on a larger, grander scale, as you're also seeing. So as an individual is, so is the city, so is the country.
Right. Well, and I think even in a little space, it's like, look at me, like I'm so hard because I'm gonna shoot you in a club.
Right.
Like, and that like tries to look cool in front of other people.
Yeah.
Which I don't think it actually is cool. I think that used to be what we thought was cool, or maybe it never has. But the fact that people think that's cool right now and that that's hard per se, to me is actually your weakest point. It actually is how soft you are in a kind of a weird spiritual way.
Well, it's an indicator of immaturity.
I like that.
So a spiritual and emotional immaturity.
Now, do you think it's related to the times we're in? Because we usually don't hear about nightclub shootings.
Yeah.
Do you think it's just kind of the energy that popped up out of nowhere? Because around the world we've been having beheadings and we've been having, you know, ISIS situations going on. Do you think it's related, like personally?
I would say that certainly there's this tenor of aggression throughout the media right now. So everything that falls into that, and it's, I mean, media sensationalism is always around.
That's true.
And people are interested in what's going on.
Well, I think that this is a time where, and I think you bring up ego really has to be checked.
Yeah.
And how it's got to be used right. And how, because I've always been a big believer that ego is not bad because it can be used for identifying that's Coca-Cola or that's Sprite.
Sure.
Or protecting yourself, especially if, let's say, I don't know, somebody's trying to run in your house and steal something.
Yeah.
But I think that a lot of people look at ego as, you know, the worst thing on the world.
Right.
And I think it's because of examples like this. What ways do you think spiritually there are to help battle your ego?
Well, the number one way to battle your ego is to sit and be still. Some people call it meditation. I call it creating breathing space. Meditation and sitting still and looking at all those rampant thoughts that are aspects of the ego is the greatest antidote for that, because we actually sit with ourselves and see what we're bringing into each moment. Most people are so controlled by their thoughts that they're not actually considering what might happen. Like, they're not checking themselves when they go out and grab a gun and go try to shoot someone at a nightclub. Like, at some point, there's a lot of, it's not just spur of the moment, there's a lot of moments where you can, like, take a breath and say, do I really want to do this?
Well, do you think the music has anything to do with this? Because I'm going to be honest with you, the people that are getting caught up in this, the music is actually very negative and dark.
Super
and I like how you bring up the stillness.
Yeah.
But then on top of it, what you're listening to and bringing in too, and the energy you're bringing in, I think has to do a lot with it.
Definitely.
And
it's the culture of violence in the music.
It is, and I think that we're at a point where we can't take it anymore.
Right.
Nobody's going to accept it anymore.
Right.
And we shouldn't make it cool anymore either.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Like you and I do music together, and that's why I kind of really enjoy my time with you, is because we have this similar positive musical influence.
Right.
And I think that's why we do cool things like talk about spirituality in the public and what I like to call the conscious in the middle of the unconscious.
Right.
But I think that it's very much related, and where we're at in the world right now with governments changing, like Ukraine right now is basically in kind of this weird position.
Yeah.
How do you feel that world events are going? How do you think that the world can sit down and meditate? How do you think that'll happen? Well, let's try and get through. Let's try and get through my boy right here. Right? But see, you know what? That guy's listening to some good music. And you know what? He's keeping it gangster.
Grooving.
But what do you feel about the world event stage? And maybe how can you or anybody else out there bring what you just bring with your meditation, your Zen life? Yes. How can we bring that to a world stage? It's a hard question, I know.
It is a hard question, but it really begins with each individual. So, the way that we are in the world as a result of being still is how we can expect others to be. And so we can only begin and end with ourselves. So I think that it gets overwhelming when we look at the world scene and say, what is one person to do? Well, the way that you interact with the world on a daily basis, with the person at the checkout counter, with someone who needs to get in front of you on the freeway, like these are all decision points where you can actually allow compassion and space to flow from your experience, and it affects the world. Each one of these exchanges impacts the world in a positive way. And only by being an example can we hope to improve the world around us.
Yeah, that one analogy is so funny because we look at it as it's everything is one, but we are one in ourselves. That one individual ingredient of who we are has to project the right energy.
Yeah.
And this is a time where I think there is no you can't bullshit what you're projecting anymore.
No.
I think that it's becoming so clear.
Yeah.
And I think with what you're doing with Zen Life and teaching people these skills is showing them, and it's almost like you have to expose your own crap
Right.
by learning to be still to see it so you can remove it. It's like you gotta empty the recycle bin in order to really empty it, and I think that's what you teach people, is you can only do that in that space.
Right. You can only first know that your container is full in that space, and then you can only dump it out in that space as well. It's just about making yourself a clear container for your pure energy to flow through.
And so I have to ask you, as we leave this kind of crazy week that I think is going to be very intense, you know, where do you feel that the world is going to turn with spirituality and finding Zen? Do you think we're close? Do you think there's still a lot of work? Or do you think we're at the brink of something special?
I think that we are definitely at the very best time in our human history for an evolution of consciousness, for a leap in consciousness, and it has to do with spirituality. We can't make it.
We can't make the light. Well, thank you, Adam, for hanging out today and talking about this stuff, because I think it's a big deal, and I think people are trying to really figure out what's going on. Why can the energy just shift from 1 minute being okay, it seems like everything's fine, and then the next minute the energy's so intense and there's people doing all this crazy stuff, and then people are acting the way that they do, and then they're all crazy.
I think there's a lot of disconnection, truthfully. And so when we
this is the shit I want to get. Where's
Yeah.
You think it's disconnection? I like that.
I think there's a lot of disconnection. I think people are very disconnected. There's this mind separated from the body, and we're living in a very future-oriented space when we're not actually grounded.
I like that.
So, and that's really what consumerism and capitalism is based on, is that we can sell you something for tomorrow today. And so you're living in that tomorrow vision, that future orientation, not actually realizing how disconnected you are in the here and now. And so your relationships suffer, and you're shitty to people, and it's just, that's the way it is.
Yeah, because it's okay if you're gonna be a rapper, but if you don't know how to ground, like you said, be connected. It's okay to be whoever you want to be. If I want to be an astrologer talking about Hollywood Boulevard, that's what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
If you want to be a Zen life teacher and practitioner, but DJ house music, that's what you do.
Right.
And I think it's important to have us connect, like you say, and I think that's definitely the secret.
It's about connecting to our personal truth, is it not?
That's what it's all about right now. And I think that these moments that we're seeing in the world, even though they seem so crazy and weird, are actually the greatest gift by allowing us to expose ourselves and see what could really expose who we really should be and how we can ground. So, thanks, brother.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me.
Yeah.
It's been awesome.
Well, Adam, it was wonderful today being on the street with you. How do people get in contact with you?
Oh, I would love for people to check me out on my Facebook page, which is Live a Zen Life. So / Live a Zen Life. I also have a newsletter at liveazenlife.com.
Perfect.
You can put your email in there, and we send out a weekly email just about how to live a Zen life, which is the life that is filled with ease and grace and connection.
I like that. Well, thanks again, buddy. It's been a pleasure, and I'll see you around.
Thanks for having me, David.
Thanks. Final thoughts for today's episode, and this has to go with what Adam said, connection. I think that is the definition of true consciousness and unconsciousness, is connected and unconnected. When you're connected, you're aware of what's going on, and you're gonna make the best decision you can. And where all these events are going in the world right now are unveiling where you're connected, where you're not. Because Scorpio deals with the depth of your connection, and Leo represents the passion of that connection and the happiness around connection. Is it a negative connection you have or a positive one? You know, like, where are those connections in your life right now? And I think we're gonna see on the world stage who's connected and who's not. Thank you so much for joining me on another edition of Hollywood Astrology. I'm your host, David Palmer, the Leo King, and I will see you on the next episode.